Looking for something to scare the living out of you later this year? The Callisto Protocol will definitely have you covered. Just as the long-awaited Dead Space remake is slated to arrive early next year in 2023, we have confirmation that perhaps an even deadlier game in a similar vein in the Callisto Protocol will be arriving to all major platforms, excluding the Switch, on December 2nd, 2022. Survival horror games have seen quite a resurgence from classic franchises recently, with Capcom churning out several remakes of the Resident Evil franchise over the past few years, and the upcoming Dead Space remake hitting store shelves early next year. The Callisto Protocol seeks to make its bloody mark on this influx of survival horror games by doubling down on the terror while facing an unimaginable alien threat on another world. While its similarities to Dead Space and Resident Evil is undeniable, the Callisto Protocol is striving to evolve the traditional survival horror formula by returning to a more claustrophobic setting with a host of formidable monsters just itching to tear you in two. Welcome, good people, to this week's episode of Game Watch, where we will be looking at what we know so far about the Callisto Protocol and what is turning out to be the most terrifying game coming out this year. Directed by Glenn Schofield, who previously co-created the Dead Space series, this game marks his return to the single-player survival horror space and is aiming to bring the most terrifying game the genre has seen to modern consoles and the PC. With numerous employees from the Dead Space team alongside Schofield, this talented team is once again returning to the far reaches of space to unleash new monstrosities that will surely haunt players for years, if not generations to come. The Callisto Protocol fittingly takes place on the moon of Callisto, which orbits the planet Jupiter. Callisto is said to be a quote-unquote dead moon, with its frigid and harsh blizzards covering up one of its surface's most sinister facilities, the prison colony of Black Iron. You reprise the role of Jacob Lee, a prisoner being held at this facility, and you just happen to find yourself being at the epicenter of a massive alien mutant invasion that happened to be created by the prison's warden. Why are you a prisoner? What are you doing all the way out here on Callisto? What are these horrifying creatures? These are all questions we will come to find answers to as we guide Jacob through narrow, dimly lit corridors, blasting and tearing apart these creatures with an expansive arsenal of weaponry. Just by taking a look at the game's trailers, one could easily mistake it for a more polished, grittier Dead Space, and that's certainly a good thing. Fans of Dead Space have been craving for more entries in the series, and although we are getting a remake of Dead Space 1, many fans looking for something more in that style of survival horror are getting a taste of the next evolution of that series in the Callisto Protocol. The gameplay takes place in third person, as we can see the camera and gunplay greatly resembling that of its Dead Space roots. Here, we can see Jacob being able to shoot limbs off of enemies, a key feature in the Dead Space games. Strategic dismemberment, as it was called, was a key aspect of the gameplay in the Dead Space series. Whether the Callisto Protocol marks a return to this type of gameplay remains to be seen, as the dismemberment of enemies in the Dead Space series would often result in the enemies changing form, often growing limbs and altering their means of attacks at the player character. As we can see here in the Callisto Protocol, limbs can very well be hacked off, yet we don't see the enemies altering their behavior and attack patterns as a result. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the strategic dismemberment take a greater role in the game as we see more gameplay in the coming months. We can also see the game's melee combat, which looks nearly identical to that of Dead Space, along with a satisfying curb stomp attack that will be essential to make sure the enemies you strike down remain down for good. We have also seen the return of what looks like the telekinesis ability, with Jacob able to pick up enemies and hurl them. I won't be surprised if we manage to get stasis abilities and other aspects of gameplay from the Dead Space series in the Callisto Protocol when the game releases. As similar as these games appear to be, this begs the question: is it necessarily bad that the Callisto Protocol borrows so heavily on what Dead Space did all the way back in 2008? Remember, back in 2008, the survival horror genre was in seriously rough shape from a commercial standpoint, with many heavy-hitting franchises releasing games that went more in the way of action while leaving its horror components as an afterthought. Dead Space single-handedly brought back a true sense of dread and horror as players guided Isaac through the destroyed, twisted, and claustrophobic labyrinth of the Ishimura. The Callisto Protocol seems to mostly tread that similar path, but perhaps the most critical component to this game is that it is the most modern return to this style of survival horror that has been missing for nearly a decade. As great as the Resident Evil franchise has been as of late, there hasn't been anything quite like Dead Space to hit modern hardware in nearly a decade, and the Callisto Protocol seeks to address just that. A more modern, prettier, grittier take on a beloved series from an all-star team who worked on the very games that inspired its own creation. And that is something worth celebrating and keeping an eye on. I will of course be making more content surrounding the Callisto Protocol as we learn more about the game in the coming months, but I'd like to invite you all to let me know if you are interested in this game and whether or not you like what you've seen so far about the Callisto Protocol. Is this game too similar to Dead Space for its own good? Let me know in your thoughts in the comments section, and while you're at it, curb stomp that like button and dismember that subscribe button for more episodes of Game Watch just like this, as well as reviews, tips and tricks videos, and more. Your help goes a long way to support a small channel like this, and it is all very much appreciated. Thank you for your support, good people, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace!